So now that you've watched the video on rounding decimals, let's just do a couple example questions. So let's say you saw on your assignment that you had to deal with decimals and you had to round to the nearest hundredth and also the nearest tenth. Okay, so let me just go ahead and write your first question. So I'm going to give you a decimal 171 thousandths. If we were going to round that to the nearest hundredth, well, you look at the 7 is in the hundredth. Look to the right, that's a 1, so the 7 stays the same. So that would be 0.17 or 17 hundredths. Notice when I round to the nearest hundredth, my decimal, the last number in my decimal would be in the hundredths place value. If I rounded this to the nearest tenth, where is the tenth? Well, there's a 1 in it. Look to the right, there's a 7. That's higher than 5. So it's actually going to turn the 1 into a 2. It's rounding up. So I go 0.2 or 2/10. Let's do another one. $694 thousandths. All right. The 9 is in the hundredths place value. Look to the right. It's a 4. Therefore, the 9 stays the same. So it would just stay as 69 hundredths. Rounding that same number decimal into a tenth. The 6 is in the tenths place value. Look to the right. You see a 9? Well, that's going to round the 6 up. So 0.7 or 7/10. All right, let's talk about another example. Sometimes when you round various decimals, they will actually turn into the same number. So let me just write a couple decimals. 2 different decimals. Okay, so there's your 2 decimals. We'll call this one A and this one B. Let's round A to the nearest tenth. So there's the tenth. Look to the right of it. The 3 does not change the 2. So for A to the nearest tenth, it would be 2/10. How about B? There's the tenth. Look to the right. It's also a 3. That keeps it the same. So notice before, there were 2 different decimals, 234 thousandths and 231 thousandths. But when you actually do some rounding to the nearest tenth, they actually turn into the same number. So that can be common. Now, if we rounded those to the nearest hundredth, okay, well, there's the hundredth. Look to the right. The 4 keeps it the same. So for A, round to the nearest hundredth would stay as 23 hundredths. Okay, now looking here, there's the hundredth. Look to the right. The 1 does not change the 3. So once again, even when you round to the nearest hundredth, they stay the same. Now sometimes that can happen, sometimes not, but there will be some questions that ask you, which numbers, when rounded, turn into the same number. So that's how you might want to approach that. Okay, when you talk about money, money is often found in decimal places, only up to the decimal place of the hundredths. And it makes sense because there are 100 pennies in a dollar. So that's why we deal with hundredths. Okay, so if we were to compare the price of something, I don't know, let's say a new shovel, that you're a gardener, you need to buy a new shovel, and you went to one store and it was $4.25. You went to another store and it was $4.28, and another one where it was, let's say, $5.03. Now, would it be a good idea to round these numbers to the nearest tenth to compare them? Well, let's just take a look at this. Let's round these all to the nearest tenth. Okay, well, there's a tenth, tenth, and tenth. You look beside each number. So this one round to the nearest tenth would be $4.30, because the 5 would change the 2 into a 3. All right, the next one. This one will be $4. Let's take a look at this. The 8 would change the 2 into a 3. Okay. And finally, this would be $5. The 3 would not change the 0 because it's below 5. So they'll just round it to $5. When you look at that, I don't know if rounding to the nearest tenth would be a good idea, because when you do that, notice these two values, the amount of money, they look the same. So when you're comparing amount of money, you want to make sure you round to the nearest hundredth, or just leave it the same. And that's the easiest way to compare money. So rounding to the nearest tenth usually is not the way to go. All right, hopefully those are some good examples for you. And you can rewatch these videos as much as you want and ask questions with your peers. You can Google it or ask me. All right, thanks a lot.